Philly, we need to talk. Philadelphia. Philly, big old Philly out there, the city of brotherly love, even though your fan bases are filled with pure hatred and aggression. That's what's up. That makes sense. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. Also, don't shoot the messenger, Philly fans, if you end up finding this. The Joel Embiid era is over. Now, you're going to hear me say that and probably lose it a little bit and be like, what do you mean? When he plays, he's still incredible, still one of the best players in the league. There's no way that that's true. And you're right. When he does play, he's pretty damn good. He's pretty great. He gets buckets. He does his thing. But that's the thing. You always have to subsidize it with the fact that when he plays, which just hasn't been often this year, he's missed more games than he's played. He's missed more than half the games. To this point, during this recording, you're coming off this loss to Sacramento after a couple of impressive wins. You beat Boston, you beat Utah, you beat Portland. You beat San Antonio 4 games in a row. On a 4-game winning streak, you were looking for 5. You were up against you were up against Sacramento. You should have won that game, and you didn't. You didn't pull it out. That's another thing I want to talk about. This team is terrible in clutch situation. Terrible, horrific, bad, flat out bad. But I want to keep the focus on Joel Embiid because he just cannot be trusted. And I know you guys love him, and that's great because he seems like a good dude off the court. He just can't be trusted on the court. Number one, he's never come through for you in clutch situations, in high-pressured situations in the playoffs. He just hasn't. I know you guys are going to be like, well, look at his stats. Stats are great. And it's like, yeah, I know, but I also watched the games, and I also have seen him never make a conference finals in his career. And it's like, at some point, you got to make one. Like one. I'm not even asking you to win it. You could get swept in the conference finals. You got to make one. And I also get that you're probably going to bring up, like, well, Ben Simmons happened. And it's like, I get it. And you're like, well, Markelle Fultz thing happened. And it's like, I get it. And then even after that, it's like, well, James Harden happened. And I get it. But the overarching thing that defined all those seasons and all those experiments is the fact that Joel Embiid was incapable of consistently staying on the court. Joel Embiid was drafted in 2014. This is now the 11th year since he was selected 3rd overall. And I know he missed his first 2 years with the injury, so technically he's only been playing 8 or 9 years. But isn't that just symbolic of his career? And just to make note of it, I'm not doing this to pick on Embiid. Like I said, dominant player, seems like a good dude off the court. But like, let's be real. He's a 30-year-old center with chronic knee injuries, with chronic lower body injuries, with back issues. And then to top it all off, the guy has weight issues. He cannot consistently come into the season in shape. He's constantly playing himself into shape and then constantly getting hurt because he's not in shape, and then constantly because he's hurt, he can't rehab and stay in shape. And so now he's in this constant battle throughout the year of like fighting to get back into shape, getting hurt, then falling out of shape, then having to rehab and get back into shape, and then coming back and being out of shape but playing himself into shape and then getting hurt again. And then the cycle continues and repeats. And here we are. 10, 11 years later, Joel Embiid is now 30 years old with a constant history of getting injured on probably his deepest, most talented, most experienced team, being surrounded by the young, uprising player in Tyrese Maxey, an old veteran star in Paul George, and here he is supposed to be the centerpiece, and yet he can't stay on the court. Now, we're only about 30 games in, so he could turn it around. He could for sure, he could turn it around. Also, brighter days are ahead. Brighter days are ahead. Joel Embiid will play more games as the season goes on, presumably. Joel Embiid will play more games. And the combination of he and Maxey and Paul George will finally be able to get on the court, and maybe they pull themselves together in time for the playoffs. And then they're a dangerous team in the playoffs. Doesn't matter what seed they are. Look at last season. They were a dangerous first round out. But at the same time, they still went out in the first round. Why? Multitude of reasons. Team wasn't all that deep. Joel Embiid was significantly hurt, dealing with a whole lot of ailments. And at the end of the day, you lost to a better team. And I ask you, what's the difference between last year and this year? Not a whole lot. I get it. Maxey's a year older. You drafted a really young player in Jared McCain, who, by the way, is also injured. But outside of that, you also have done a really good job of improving your team overall in terms of the depth. You brought in Yabusele. Caleb Martin is a fantastic pickup. Drummond is a serviceable backup big as opposed to who you had last year in Paul Reed, but I still think he's going to get exposed and played out of the rotation in the playoffs. because that's usually what happens with Andre Drummond. That's why he bounces around year after year. He doesn't stick with one team. But if you think he's the answer, then you guys think he's the answer. I'm just here to deliver you some bad medicine. But the biggest issue with your team is that you just have very injury-prone players. Embiid, very injury-prone. Paul George, very injury-prone. And those are the two guys who you're relying on the most. And as long as those two guys continue to remain in and out of the lineup, you're going to continue to put a ton of pressure on Tyrese Maxey, a ton of minutes, and a ton of hard minutes where he's controlling the ball, having to make play after play. And we've already seen him kind of wear down a little bit, get some muscle injuries, have to miss a game here and there, and it's like he's a young guy that should not be happening. Now, maybe that was a one-off thing, and he'll be fine as the season goes on, and he'll only miss a handful of games here and there. Cool, time will tell. But one thing I can guarantee you, Joel Embiid will continue to miss games this year. Paul George will continue to miss games this year. And how much longer can your team survive? And it's not about getting into the play-in. It's not about getting into the playoffs. It's about making it to the finals. Hell, making it to the conference finals would be a step up for Philly. And I just don't think you have it in you anymore with Joel Embiid being the center. And that's where I want to go. Because while I think it's over for Philly in terms of Joel Embiid leading you to that conference finals appearance, we'll just leave it at that. We'll set the bar pretty low. Leading you to that conference finals appearance, I still think there's upside with Tyrese Maxey as the cornerstone, as the face of the franchise, as the guy now leading your team. And the only thing I have to say about that is that I hope Joel Embiid is very comfortable handing the keys over to Maxey relatively soon. It seems like he will be, but you never know in those situations. So I say all of that to simply put, not all is gone. I'm not trying to rain down on anybody's parade out there in Philly who thinks that this team is finally starting to turn it around after a hellish start to the year. I'm just being a little semantical in that the sooner Joel Embiid recognizes that this should now be Tyrese Maxey's team, I think the better off the team will be. The thing about that is, if Tyrese Maxey's your best player, I don't know if this is the year you're going to make it. I was just in awe of the highlights real quick. Against Charlotte, of all teams. But Tyrese Maxey with the pull-up three, knocks it down. See, look at you. Look at you guys. Look at you guys go. You know, Maxey had a great season last year, but really jumped off the page and made the star leap during the playoffs last year in that first round against the Knicks, where he really showed up and was the best player for Philly. Which is my point in that at the end of the day, Tyrese Maxey is going to have to lead you to that conference finals appearance. He's got to be the guy. Not Embiid, not Paul George, Tyrese Maxey. And while I love Maxey, what is he, in his third, fourth, fifth year at most? Like, still really young and just not good enough at that level. Like, there's some young guys who it's like, yeah, cool, they could lead them there. If Wemby had a better team around them, I could see Wemby leading his team there. Luka's led his team there in the past when he was younger. Even now that he's older, he's got a team surrounding them where it's like, yeah, we expect those guys up there in Dallas to compete for a championship. I don't know, Maxey's on that level, which is fine. You just have to surround them and insulate them with even more talent, which comes into team building. But I don't know how reliable your team building can be when a major part of your team is supposed to be an oft-injured center who's getting older, who's constantly dealing with more and more injuries, who's never in shape. So is it over for Philly? No. That was a little bit of a clickbait. I'm sorry. But I don't think anybody's really trusting you guys anymore. I don't know if anybody ever trusted you to begin with. There is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just not going to be with Joel Embiid leading the charge anymore. And that may be a blessing in disguise, or it could be the end of an era. What do you guys think? Can I live? What lights are we going with? Lighting. Part of me wants to do a whole lot of this. Oh, shit. Not a whole lot of change. Rest assured. Not a whole lot of change. Whoa. Chill, desk. Chill. Philly, I have bad news, everybody. The Joel Embiid era is over, and I'm not afraid to say it. Listen, I'm not a real doctor, but I got something to tell y'all. You can trust me, I'm a doctor.